My name is Adina Rissman. I'm a professor here at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I am thrilled to welcome you to this opportunity to share and hear the lessons learned from the Just Transitions to Managed Livestock Grazing project. I'm thrilled to introduce Anna and Aaron, who have been leading this effort, and three farmers who have been working on just transitions to livestock grazing. So as we get started, please go ahead and share into the chat your name, your affiliation, and the farm animal you most identify with. Thanks. I'm seeing a whole range of diverse livestock so far, from chickens and goats to cows, and also other maybe non-traditional farm animals like honeybees and herding dogs, potato beetles, sheep and goats. Thanks, everybody. Dogs and donkeys. And llamas, swallows, beef cattle, dairy cattle, horses, and deer. So thanks, everybody. I am thrilled to be sharing this work with everyone. This is a long-term project that has come out of the Grassland 2.0 project. I am one of many people engaged with the Grassland 2.0 project. I'm a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison in the College of Agriculture and Life Science, and I focus on social science and policy research. And the Grassland 2.0 project is something I've been excited to be part of. It's a collaborative group of farmers, researchers, and public and private sector leaders working to develop socially just pathways to enhance managed grazing and grassland agriculture for a whole host of reasons, from farmer profitability to water quality, wildlife habitat, soil carbon, and more. And the work that Anna Focusado and Aaron Lowe have done in bringing together this report and the 130 interviews that went into it has really transformed this project to one that engages deeply in the questions of how these transitions to managed grazing can be socially just. And so I'm very excited to introduce them and for everyone to be able to share in this conversation today. I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping here. This webinar is being recorded. The audio and video will be posted, but the chat will not be posted. It's at grasslandag.org/justtransitions, which is also where you can find the report and all the briefs for different kinds of audiences. If you're just joining us, we're putting into the chat your name, your affiliation, and the farm animal you identify with most. There's a real diversity of farm animals that people have selected. I want to go over the agenda for today briefly. We are going to hear first from Aaron Lowe and Anna Focusado, who have been leading and spearheading this work. And then there'll be a farmer panel with three farmers, Scott Mericka, Rodrigo, Cala, and Lynn Utesch, who are going to be talking about their personal experiences. And then we will have questions from all of you. We will be doing questions in the chat, so you can go ahead and post them there. Feel free to post those questions as people are speaking, and then we will get to them in the end for that moderated discussion. So thanks, and passing it over here to Aaron and Anna.
Thanks so much, Adina, for the intro, and thank you all so much for being here today. I am Aaron Lowe.
And I'm Anna Focusado.
And we're the researchers who led this project. And we just wanted to start today by acknowledging that the place we're zooming in from today now known as Madison, Wisconsin, is the rightful homeland of the Ho-Chunk Nation, land that they were forced to cede in 1832. Now, this is a statement about the past, but it's also very much a matter of the present. And in the report, we do address this colonial history and explore how we can move toward a more just future. We also wanted to share up front that the best part of this project for both of us was getting to connect with the more than 130 people who participated. And we were just so inspired and are so grateful to everyone who took the time to share their ideas and stories with us. And it was really exciting for us to see all of those ideas come together in this report. So huge thanks to everyone who participated for making this possible. Now, the purpose of this report is to identify ways to create a just transition in agriculture through the lens of managed livestock grazing in the Midwest region. Managed grazing, or rotating animals through paddocks, can promote environmental health in a lot of different ways. It's been shown to help restore the economic and social viability of rural communities as well. And we were interested in taking this beneficial farming practice and exploring what actions we can take to support it in ways that also further equity and justice for everyone who participates in the food system. And this is what we mean by a just transition. The idea of a just transition, as it's used in many organizing circles, has roots in indigenous communities across the Americas. And the basic principle is creating a transition that addresses inequities in power and resources, enables people to regain control over agricultural land, markets, and institutions, and at its core allows everyone to live well without living at the expense of others.
So from 2020 to 2022, we interviewed 128 people connected to animal agriculture in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, Iowa, and Illinois. We asked questions about their vision for the future, how to best support managed grazing, and how to build a more just and equitable food system. We also conducted a series of 3 workshops with some of the interviewees, mainly folks who were nonprofit professionals, tribal government employees, and farmers. We then analyzed the interviews and identified 4 main themes that came up across all the interviews when we asked people about their vision for the future. First, people's vision went beyond just the farm system. They imagined a future in which everyone could attain a high quality of life with access to healthcare, housing, retirement, and a living wage. And in turn, people told us that these basic assurances would give them more agency to support a healthy community and a healthy environment. We also heard a desire for diverse regional food systems that connect farmers and eaters and give communities control over what they eat and how it's produced. People also described a future that would give folks from diverse backgrounds equitable access to land and resources, create pathways to ownership for workers, have leadership roles for people of color, and opportunities for collaborative food production. Finally, people shared a vision for democratic control over the food system, where more people can grow food and where the government is an ally in distributing resources equitably to farm owners, workers, and eaters.
And the recommendations in this report are intended for a broad audience doing work around sustainable ag and food systems. So it synthesizes what we heard in the interviews, and we hope that content can be adapted to inform strategic planning, education, government policies and programs, finance, and grassroots organizing and advocacy efforts. And in addition to the report, we also created more tailored briefs that consolidate report recommendations specifically for certain audiences, for universities, extension professionals, agricultural educators, policy advocates, and NRCS staff. And we've divided the report into 8 sections to help organize actions around specific areas of work. So we'll just go through and give a brief summary of what each section covers. The education section gives recommendations for adjusting the type and structure of agricultural education programs so that they better support all farmers, especially grazers, new and beginning farmers, and farmers of color. The alternative market section is kind of a grab bag that highlights a range of recommendations around market development and consumer demand, institutional procurement, labeling, cooperatives, and federal programs. In the section on processing, we talk about ways to increase processing capacity through supporting small, cooperatively owned and on-farm or mobile processors. And there's also an essential workers section in which we touch on a really comprehensive set of supports for both farm workers and farm owners. So this includes labor rights and immigration reform, healthcare, housing, living wages and retirement, and cooperative farming.
Addressing industry consolidation was also a top issue for interviewees. So in this section on consolidation, we include information on antitrust legislation and discuss overproduction and price stabilization. The section on capital talks about how to change norms and policies that govern lending and grant making, reforming or creating new FSA and NRCS programs, and maybe most importantly, addressing inequities in governmental support for different types of agriculture by amending agricultural subsidy programs. In the land access section, we recommend ways to address land injustice against communities of color, how to support land access, especially for beginning farmers and farmers of color, and changing norms and assumptions around land and land management. And going with that, in the social norms section, we discuss different ways of measuring farm success, particularly those that center benefits for communities, farmers, and environment. We talk about decolonizing agriculture and redefining norms within communities to better support the next generation of farmers. And, we divided the report into sections that would align with specific areas of work, like Erin was saying, but there's also a lot of overlap across these different sections. And you'll notice we tried to really highlight those places in the text. So for example, technical support is mostly covered in the education section, but interviewees shared that NRCS lacks technical support providers with experience in grazing, and that this makes it then difficult for farmers to access capital through NRCS programs. You'll also notice that we've included a few spotlights within the report, and we're using this spotlight format to highlight two main issues that needed more attention in our region. First, the issues faced by Native nations are very unique. So we have included 3 spotlights that explain sort of the key problems faced by tribes and some effective ways that they're addressing them. So we have one spotlight on the Wisconsin Tribal Conservation Advisory Council, another on tribal lands, and this is a very high level summary of some of the land issues faced by tribes. And finally, a spotlight that highlights food sovereignty, planning, and implementation happening right now at the Oneida Nation. The second issue we highlight through a spotlight is labor organizing. And through our research, we didn't find many farm worker labor organizing efforts in the livestock sector in the Midwest. So we interviewed Migrant Justice in Vermont to highlight one current model of a dairy farm worker-led organization that's really pushing for workers' rights and for equitable distribution of profits across the supply chain.
There are many more specific takeaways within each section, but instead of getting into the weeds of that now, we wanted to wrap up with just a few overarching takeaways from the final section of the report, which discusses strategies for change making. One of these takeaways is that while there's rightly a lot of focus on the Farm Bill, some recommendations in the report fall outside the scope of the current Farm Bill. So topics like land access, actions that enable better livelihoods for farm owners and workers, and ways to support cooperative farms. And beyond that, many communities of color have been really disenfranchised by the government. The government has never served them. And so some people we talked to were skeptical of most policy changes, and instead they emphasized the importance of grassroots organizing, market-driven solutions, and ways to build alternative economic and governance structures. So taking those things into account, one takeaway is that it's important to reflect on what can and can't be achieved through the Farm Bill, at least as it's currently structured, and through policy change in general.
Another key takeaway is that we need to focus more on deep-seated issues. So through our discussions in the workshops, we found that there's a lot of emphasis across the sustainable ag movement on things like farmer education, but less on issues like labor, consolidation, capital, and land access. And focusing on these deeper-seated issues also offers opportunities to build support across political boundaries. Because, for example, farmers across the political spectrum understand the dangers of farm and industry consolidation or the need to make a living from farming.
With that, there's also a lot of opportunity to build broader coalitions, drawing on connections between agriculture and human health, ag and climate change and conservation, and also building alliances with movements for environmental justice, indigenous rights, immigration, and fair wages, housing, and healthcare. Similarly, there's also opportunity for better coordination across branches of government, and the spotlight on the Oneida Nation that Anna mentioned gives an example of the way that Oneida is coordinating their governmental approach to agriculture, community health, and the environment. And from talking with so many people, we know that there's a lot of current expertise in education and network building within the sustainable ag movement that could be leveraged to address more issues and build these types of broader coalitions. And we really think that there's a lot of potential to expand in these directions more in the future.
So now we'd like to introduce 3 farmers who participated in this project and give them a chance to discuss their stories and perspectives on some of the issues we've highlighted in this short presentation and in more detail in the report. So with us today, we have Scott Mericka, who runs Uplands Cheese Company in Dodgeville, Wisconsin. Rodrigo Cala, who's the agricultural trainer at Latino Economic Development Center and runs Orígenes Cala Farm. And Lynn Utesch, who runs Gardens of the Fields Farm and works for the Tsyunhehkw farm at the Oneida Nation. So thank you so much for joining us today and being part of this project. We're going to, I think, go in this order from left to right and have Scott take the floor now.
Hey, everybody. Scott Mericka with Grass Dairy and Uplands Cheese in Dodgeville, Wisconsin. I've been really fortunate to be a part of this project and been very impressed with all the work that Anna and Aaron and Adina have done. It's been really cool to see. So yeah, I'm really glad we got to talk about this topic, and it's a really important one in ag because there's a huge gap between where people are treated with respect and dignity and paid living wages, and we really want to see how our food system can change going forward. So, but yeah, anyways, on our farm, we operate with 3 full-time employees, and we focus on a democratic workplace. We use lean farm management, which is basically a strategy that tries to bring in the employee's perspective to make better processes. We share all of our important metrics for management, all of the farm data that needs to be updated. We share that with all of our employees. We give everybody opportunity to voice their concerns, give their input. We focus on farm safety and training. We do everything on our farm. All of my farm employees are Spanish speaking. We do all of our farm communication in Spanish. I speak Spanish. We use walkie-talkies so we can always be accountable and be able to work as a team and keep everybody safe and on task. We provide on-farm housing. We name all of our farms, all of our farms have Spanish names. We have La Cumbia, Norteño, we've got La Rancherita, and all these little farm names we've got for all the different farms, so people feel at home and feel welcomed. And we have a place of we really embrace cultural diversity. I love hearing cumbia and norteño. I love hearing Vicente Fernandez playing when we're milking cows. You know, those are the things that make me really happy, and it makes me feel really fulfilled. And going forward, I really want to see a more equitable opportunity. I want to see immigration reform. I want to see farm workers treated with respect and dignity. You know, so yeah, I've been really fortunate in my life. I've had a lot of really great examples, people I've worked side by side with. Even before I bought my farm, and I was, just an employee like they were, I learned respect and dignity. I learned how to work hard and not complain. And so yeah, I've been really fortunate. So that's kind of my take on it. And oh, there's one more thing. Our dairy grazing apprenticeship program is offering all of our dairy grazing training in Spanish now going forward. We just got some money to help us kind of roll this program out, and we're hoping to, I'd love to reach out to Rodrigo and talk to him about how we can maybe try to get more Spanish speakers involved in field days and Spanish speakers involved in like presentations and even, leading field days if we get to that chance. So that'd be awesome. So that's my spiel. And yeah, I'm very fortunate and been really appreciative of the opportunities. Thank you. And I talked really fast.
Thank you, Scott, so much. Rodrigo, do you want to go next?
Yes, everybody can hear me.
Yep.
Okay, my name is Rodrigo Cala. I am from Mexico, and I have a farm in Wisconsin, but I sold my produce in Minnesota. So we are a diverse farm. I started working with Anna and all the group about tree range, poultry alliance, because climate change. And I was an organic vegetable farmer for 10 years. And 3 years ago, I started having many troubles growing brassicas, broccoli, and cauliflowers. And then we try to thinking what we can do different. So we diversify more farm. So we bring sheep, chickens, and cattle and hogs. So it's a big issue about food safety. So we try to working on different certifications and programs and trainings about food safety. So right now, myself, I working with Latino Economic Development Center, Hablo Español. So we try to focus on many issues about farming. It's land access, huge one, climate change, because that thing affect us for many years. Financial literacy. I working with LEDC on a mission. Like, we don't try to make better farmers. We try to switch the brain of farmers to be business people. I think access to markets, it's a big one. It's no matter if you what I don't want to say color. I want to say what culture you came from. The marketing side is really a big deal for farmers. If you don't have the ability to sell your produce or your product or whatever you grow in your farm or raise in your farm, you are finished. So COVID-19 changed everything. So COVID-19 give us like a table or spoon of what it can be on the future if we don't take the steps for working together with the community to food-based chain, so we can deal better in the future with these kind of issues. Grazing on a farm, it's very a big deal. Try to moving all the sheep and the chickens on a specific place every year, using new technology, using more greenhouses, using more apps, record keeping. Issue is really, I was working with farmers around the state of Minnesota, but I have the ability to working with farmers around the country. So record keeping, I don't met already a farmer who wants to working on record keeping, and it's reality. So we try to find the technology. We trying to find the access to these tools. They can be very beneficial for farmers. So every day we try to make a living on this journey. So encourage people. So we have many questions about who's going to be the next generation of farmers on this country. So immigrants and young Anglo generations, this can be the answer. So we are here for working together. We run a co-op, a share ground farmers co-op. For a few years, we closed down last year because many issues about running share ground. But we're working with three range alliance to figure it out the way we can working on corn production, sheep, chicken, and vegetable production to figure out the way to making money collectively. And I am here if you have any question. If I am really happy to be on this kind of groups. I am Latino. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rodrigo. And Rodrigo also wanted to share this handout from Latino Economic Development Center. Did you want to say anything about these services, Rodrigo, quickly? We can also send this out via email to the attendees.
Yes, very quick. In LEDC, we really focus on the business side of the farms right now. We have loans, we have technical support. If you know anybody in the state of Minnesota or close to the borders of Minnesota and Wisconsin and Minnesota, Iowa and Minnesota, just send on my way. I have a really good relationship with another communities, the Hmong community, the African American. So I start working with Native American community recently. So if you know anybody who needs help to buy a tractor or getting greenhouses or help with organic or FISMA certification or GAP certification, just send on my way. And it's gonna be, this is my information. I think it's in the end of on the page. Send me a text message. I think is the easiest way to reach me. So I am here. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you, Rodrigo. Lynn, do you want to take it away?
Welcome, everybody. My name is Lynn Utesch, and I live in Kewaunee County, Wisconsin, where along with my wife, Nancy, we own a 150-acre farm. We raise 100% grass-fed beef there under using rotational grazing practices. We've been grazing for 30 years. We started our grazing operation on Washington Island, Wisconsin, which is out in Lake Michigan. We started that basically out of necessity because at the time, we couldn't raise good corn on the island, and it was extremely expensive. So we had to look at an alternative as to how to actually raise cattle and make a profit and raise a family. So we started on Washington Island with our rotational grazing. 2004, we moved to Kewaunee County, and that's where we currently farm and have been for the last 20 years. I'm also employed by the Oneida Nation at the Tsyunhehkw. Tsyunhehkw means life sustenance. That's Tsyunhehkw is tasked with education and providing transferable knowledge to the Oneida people. Tsyunhehkw has been chemical free for over 30 years. That's in the primary focus of Tsyunhehkw is to raise the Oneida's traditional white corn. It's white corn is has a very spiritual and cultural significance to the Oneida people. It's one of the three sisters that the corn, beans, and squash. And this corn was given to the Oneida people by the Creator. So this is extremely important to the Oneida Nation. So this corn has been continuously grown by the Oneida people since the beginning of time. And we here at Tsyunhehkw maintain that corn by saving seed each and every year, and that is then utilized to plant the next year's crop. So that's our primary focus. We also have maintain community gardens, greenhouses, and we do wildcrafting for medicinal plants that are utilized by the community. But Tsyunhehkw also has a 100% grass-fed beef herd. We raise registered shorthorns here, and we have the only tribally owned registered shorthorn herd in the United States. That's here at Tsyunhehkw, we move our cattle on a daily basis. That's we try to, as close as possible, to replicate the movements of the bison herd on a limited acreage. During the winter months, we bale feed our cattle herd, which means that we put round bales out in the pastures itself, and then as we progress through those bales, they're given a small section of pasture. And again, we're attempting to mimic nature and the bison herds as close as possible. The idea here at Tsyunhehkw is that we try to work as much as possible with nature. We want to enhance nature and to actually work to make things better for the community and for the natural environment that we have received in the lands that we use. So the COVID was a real changing point for Tsyunhehkw and for the Oneida Nation. Prior to COVID, food sovereignty had always been talked about and had always been of interest to the people, but it was more kind of almost a abstract idea. It was the food sovereignty meant more the white corn. The traditional foods were just maintained, where once COVID hit, then food sovereignty took on the real identity of being, we need to provide the food for the people. Here at Tsyunhehkw, luckily we had gone through a business planning, and we were able to, as soon as COVID hit, we were able to transition from the education perspective that we had to actually providing food directly to the people. We immediately were able to take some of our grass-fed beef, get it processed, and provide that to our emergency food pantry, which had a huge need, because at that point in time, if you all remember, there was food shortages, especially meat shortages, in all of our grocery stores. So the focus all of a sudden became, how do we really provide the food and sustenance for the Oneida people? And that changed the thinking all throughout the Oneida Nation, their whole food system. And we're still working on that today. We haven't achieved everything that we've wanted to, but we are still making progress and going in the right direction. Tsyunhehkw provided thousands of pounds of vegetables to the local community here. We transitioned from our community gardens to growing food that then was given out to the Oneida people. We had food giveaways each and every week. And again, thousands and thousands of pounds went out to the Oneida people. That's all of our beef that we've raised since the beginning of COVID goes to the emergency food pantry or to the Oneida school system. What was realized is that we need to provide the most nutritious and to the most vulnerable population that we have here locally. And that was a decision made by the management and the business committee here to actually make sure that what was the best food was going to those people that needed it the most. That's we really focus again here at Tsyunhehkw on providing the most nutritious food we can, and that includes our grass-fed beef. We know that by grazing that we can actually provide a better product that has more omega-3s, better vitamin profile, all of these things that are actually good for grass-fed beef, and we can provide that back to our people. That's the Oneida also, because of this idea of food sovereignty, realized processing of meat products was one of the the hardest things to get done during COVID. So the United Nations has actually purchased a mobile slaughtering unit. We are in the process of getting that. We've utilized it a couple times, but we're looking at getting this out to our community so that it could be used for venison processing, chickens, small animals, all the way up to our beef cattle. The Oneida people decided that this is of utmost importance, and especially here at Tsyunhehkw. So we worked on getting that, and now we're also working with the state of Wisconsin and USDA to get that so that those food products could actually be state and federally inspected, so that way it can go out into the community as well and be utilized also in those in the school lunch programs, and also at our nursing homes, so that they meet the USDA requirements for nutrition. That's for myself, I've been here for several years, and to me, I work here because I'm obviously at an age where I'm not young anymore, and I work at Tsyunhehkw to pass on my knowledge of grazing. I'm here so that I could transfer that knowledge to the next generation, or hopefully several generations, to be able to utilize the knowledge that I've gained and not make the same mistakes that I have. Unfortunately, for a lot of the grazing that is being done, it's relatively new. We lost a lot of the knowledge that had come from our forefathers prior to confinement systems, prior to the TMRs. So we have to relearn our grazing, and we have to learn, and we need the mentors out there that can actually provide that knowledge. And that's for all communities. We need to be able to get that out to the people, and we need to make sure that our lending, the banks and lending and USDA also realize that this is a viable income source, and it's a viable form of agriculture. So that's one of the reasons that I'm here as well. I also work a lot on water quality. The grazing and the Oneida Nation. Well, first off, the Oneida Nation, it's so nice to work here because the idea of we should do a practice because it's better for water quality. Basically anywhere else in conventional agriculture, you have to go through a lot of hoops and try to explain things and things like that. Here at the Oneida Nation, if we talk about it's a good practice for water quality, it's immediately understood that the Oneida people believe in following nature and enhancing nature. And we've actually had passed here the rights of nature as a BC Business Committee resolution. So all of our agriculture now has to take into account the rights of nature to make things better. That's so here at Tsyunhehkw, we're hoping that this project continues to go forward. We want to make sure that it gets out to more and more people. And food sovereignty shouldn't just be about our tribal communities. It should be for all people. And grazing is one way that we could actually work on that and potentially have that for all of us. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lynn and Scott and Rodrigo, for your thoughts. I want to open it up now for questions. So if you could go ahead and throw questions into the chat, that would be fantastic. And while people are thinking of their questions, I just want to start by, asking Aaron and Anna, what are you hoping comes out of this Grassland 2.0 Just Transitions project? What are you hoping some of the next steps are?
Well, I think as you can see in the report and with the various different briefs, this has been kind of a very systems level view of grazing, managed grazing in the region. And so we've really tried to the best of our ability to kind of synthesize lots of different stories, different challenges across different sectors, and would like folks from these different sectors, people who work in markets, people who work for financial institutions, people who work at extension or agricultural educators, to make use of kind of the different sections in the report and the different briefs and apply it to their own work. Because I think a lot of what we have collected is, you know, really forms part of a collective story here in the Midwest around grazing, around what people want in the food system. And a lot of that isn't very reflected in our current policies and in the current programs that are offered to farmers. And we all across, you know, our different professions and our different places as farmers, as eaters, as you know, in the nonprofit field, as government employees, kind of have many different things that we can do to support the grazing community. And you know, what we've provided here, hopefully people can kind of look and see the things that apply to them, the actions, the recommendations that apply to the space in which they work, and try to include that and implement that to the best of their abilities to support managed grazing, to support agroforestry and sustainable agricultural practices, and particularly to support BIPOC farmers, immigrant communities, folks that have not been, you know, taken into account for a long time in the ways that our policies are written and the ways that our programs are structured.
Yeah, I think just kind of going with that briefly, I think one of my goals is definitely that I think there's this tendency to focus kind of on the practice sometimes, or individual farming practices. And so I think one of the real big things we wanted to draw attention to was how that connects to the people as well, how that connects to the next generation of farmers, how that connects to current farm owners and farm workers, how that connects to social and racial justice and opportunities for people to get into farming. And so I think kind of drawing the connections between this practice and kind of what we can do to support it in a more holistic way that promotes this food systems transformation is one of my key goals with this. And as Anna was saying, we kind of broke this report down into a bunch of different sections so that people could take the pieces that best related to their work. But we've also tried to kind of make explicit connections across issues. And so I think also kind of paying attention to that and finding new opportunities for collaboration across sectors and across movements. That's something that I also really hope comes out of this as well.
Great, thanks so much. A question from Michael McCreary, and they told me that you can unmute to ask a question. Michael, if you want to unmute, feel free. Otherwise, I can read it out of the chat. So Michael's question is, how did you get started? I think asking to the farmers, he's coming from a tribe that does not have cattle. So maybe to Lynn or anyone else, you know, I think there's a lot of people looking to transition or looking to get started with a herd. So Lynn, you want to take that first?
Yeah. Well, luckily here at Tsyunhehkw, there were some very visionary people that started with the cattle herd 30 years ago. So that's it was realized that the cattle would help with the fertility of the white corn. So that was pretty much the beginning of why they had cattle here at Tsyunhehkw. The way that we've started our current herd, I guess is the best way to put it, and is that through USDA we identified lands that we needed wanted to put into grazing. We wanted to grow the cattle herd to provide more meat for the nation. So we went through EQIP, which paid for a lot of the fencing in our water lines. And again, it was the management decision that we want to utilize those cattle as part of our fertility program that makes it good for not only for our land base by making the rotation for the corn, extending that out multiple years, but also that it's good for the soil health. It's good for the environment as a whole. It's restoring nature back to where it was. So it was the, through EQIP, the Oneida tribe providing that land base to start with. And then again, the management here to say, we want to utilize those animals to help restore nature, and making those purchases directly out of from, to bring in those animals that would work best for our environment here at Tsyunhehkw. Hopefully that answers your question.
Great, thanks, Lynn. Any other advice from farmers on how to get started briefly? I know you could be hours of advice, but any other kind of first places to go?
Yeah, for us was the economical reason of climate change. We was growing broccoli and cauliflowers for a few years. We throw away like 75% of our produce because the quality. So at that point, we start losing a lot of money on that, try to grow in these crops. So what's the reason we start finding a new ideas and new systems to set up on our farm. People asking me all the time, why or how or when. I mean, start with a small parcel in your farm, just for, I was visiting a farm based in Northfield. This farm is owned by Reginaldo Marroquí. When I go to there and I see his operation, that thing changed, bring my brain to a different level. And I was really attached to that system. So right now I try to transfer 36 acres of our land to regenerative systems on my farm, where I can bring chickens plus bring sheep and cattle in this small system to figure out the way to make money. For me, it's really the financial way to define farming. So if we make money, and I don't know why it's so difficult for farmers to talk about money. And for me, it's the way to feed my family, to keep doing farming. I need to have a really a reason to do this. So I encourage my kids to maybe in the future they're gonna take over of my operation. So one of my kids, the youngest one, he say I wanna be a farmer. And for me, it's a really good approach for give the opportunity to my kids to keep my legacy forward. So for me, it's a plus. And the reason why we start this is because climate change is real.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Rodrigo. Yeah. Scott, did you want to jump in on that briefly?
I was going to give the famous answer, it depends. And then to say, if you got to ask yourself what your goals are and kind of work back from that, like where do you see the cattle enterprise fitting in your life? How much money do you want to make from it? And kind of think about how much risk are you willing to take for it, and kind of work back from those factors. If you're willing to go all in and, take out loans and go into debt to have some cows, it's a good idea to gut check that before you do it. So otherwise there's other options that may be less risk. Custom grazing, you could do not have cows and just buy steers and finish grass-fed steers or whatever it might be. There's a lot of ways to take out the risk in farming. And if you really want a lot of risk and go full tilt leverage, get some dairy cows. And that's the best way to do it. But some days I don't think I'd want to agree with you, but that's just my take on it.
Yeah, thanks, Scott.
Personally, I started out.
Go ahead.
Personally, I started out with, I bought 2 cows. My wife was not willing to go in debt for farming, so she said, we'll do minimal and start and see where we went from. 30 years ago, I had 2 cows, and then when we actually could make it so that we could feed and take care of those 2 cows, then we bought more. It's like you don't have to start big. You don't have to start out with a huge herd. If you start with 2 and a little chunk of ground, you can always build on as you see fit and as you can afford to.
Yep, that makes sense, Lynn. Thanks so much. I want to turn now to policy in the Farm Bill. Laura Payne asked this question. This year, the Farm Bill will be renegotiated. A lot of people watching that process. Taking into account its limitations, what are some changes that could be made in the Farm Bill to address some of the issues you've summarized in your work?
Yeah, so I think there is a lot to that. And I think a lot of those recommendations are summarized in the brief we have specifically for policy advocates. We have recommendations around the Conservation Stewardship Program, around the Environmental Qualities Incentive Program, loan programs. Insurance is a huge area of work, both kind of retooling the current agricultural subsidy system and also creating a better insurance program that supports graziers. The Conservation Reserve Program is in there, and then the FDIPR 638 Self-Governance Demonstration Project. We talk about that in the report as well. That's allowed some tribes, including a few in Wisconsin, Oneida and Menominee, to start a tribal elder food box program where they're able to kind of take control again over these commodity food aid programs and provide food to their communities. And so making that, that's currently a pilot program, and so making that a full-fledged program with funding and support is a big one too. I would say the program that came up probably most frequently and seemed to be really important to a lot of graziers was the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. And right now that program is really not structured to support graziers very well. It kind of categorizes people as either crop farmers or livestock farmers, so a few of both. You can't get funding for cover crop seed and fencing, for example. It requires people to pay up front for a lot of the materials they're getting, and so that can be really hard for farmers with limited resources. What else? I guess you have to have animals before you can get funding for things like exterior fencing that you'd need to contain animals. So it's really hard for beginning farmers or new farmers to get into that program. So there are a lot of recommendations around that. And we also do have a separate brief that specifically talks about the CSP and EQIP programs. Anna, did you want to add anything?
I think that's a really good summary. The only thing I would add is talking about the FDIPR program and institutional procurement. There's a lot of excitement right now around the LFPA funding through USDA. That's a Local Food Purchase Assistance Cooperative Agreement program. And that's money that came through the American Rescue Plan and is kind of putting money to help to fund kind of state and tribal governments to purchase foods produced within the state or within, I think, like a 400-mile radius or something like that. And it's really meant to support local and regional and underserved producers, and really pushing for that. There's a lot of excitement around that, and definitely a lot of push to really formalize that into the Farm Bill. Something that we really came up a lot in the interviews was that, we've got these niche markets where we sell grass-fed beef, grass-fed milk, and things like that. And it's expensive to produce this food through these regenerative practices. And a lot of times, farmers produce these goods, and then the only people that can buy them are folks who have a lot of money. But farmers really want their food to go to communities, to people that need it the most, to go to schools, for example. And so some of these programs that really leverage institutional purchases and can really help us create these regional supply chains connecting BIPOC farmers in particular to that demand I think are also really critical, and it would be really great if the Farm Bill could include more funding for that.
Absolutely. And thanks for folks who are putting other Farm Bill recommendations in the chat. I think we'll just have time for one more question from Katie Trednick. How does the land back movement fit into the just transition? Where would the land come from? State owned, privately owned? Can you talk a little bit about land back and those connections?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We do talk a little bit about that in the report. I think a lot of those recommendations came from the Indian Land Tenure Foundation, which is a really great organization. And I encourage you to check them out. But the person we talked to there talked about giving tribes right of first refusal on sales of federal land, land within former reservation boundaries, and culturally important land as some top priorities around that. And so I guess that would be state and federal land primarily. But I think there is an opportunity with private land as well, in that we are sitting on kind of this massive turnover in generations. The current generation of farmers is aging. They're trying to figure out how to pass on their farms. A lot of people don't have heirs to pass it on to. And that also, I think, is a huge opportunity to hand land back to tribes. I know the Land Stewardship Project is working with some individual farmers and landowners who are interested in doing that and trying to develop better models for that. So.
Great. Well, thank you all so much. Just want to remind you that you can download the report and briefs at the link that I just dropped in the chat. And we're also going to be posting the recording to this webinar. If you have more questions or would like to continue the conversation with us, please reach out to us via email. We're going to drop our contact information in the chat as well. And we just want to thank everyone who attended this webinar and everyone who's contributed to this project over the past 2.5 years. We know that, we're talking about really difficult, complex issues around social change. That represent not only just our current struggles, but also the resilience and the fight of our parents and grandparents and the generations before them. And we're just really grateful to those who opened up and shared their knowledge, their ideas, their stories, and allowed us to bring it all together in this report and in this project. And we hope that this can be a piece that can continue, like I said before, to build our collective story and our collective power around changing the food system for the better here in the Midwest and beyond. So thank you so much for joining us. Have a happy Valentine's Day.
Also, I think a few of us are happy to stick around too for just a couple more minutes if people have other questions. I think there was one more about processing in the chat, maybe for Lynn, that we didn't get to. So.
Yes. So
thank you so much, and congratulations, Anna and Aaron, on this wonderful project. And it's really been a treat for me and for everyone to get to know a lot of the amazing people who have been joining us today and throughout the last couple of years. So thank you, everybody, for all your support and feedback and engagement on this. And thank you, Anna and Aaron. And thank you, Scott and Rodrigo and Lynn, for all of your insights and your firsthand experience doing the work. So thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.